Okay. Our next item is item 6, update discussion and potential action on recommendations for proposed legislation to amend BPC Section 4905 regarding the board's fee structure. And that was Dr. Sullivan and myself. Since he's not here, I'll go over that. A little background, during the October 2019 board meeting, the board approved raising all fees set in regulation to their statutory caps to prevent the board from going insolvent. The new fees became effective in January 2020. At that time, the board recognized the fee increase disproportionately impacted RVTs and committed to lowering RVT fees through its next sunset bill. The board also informed licensees and stakeholders that the sunset bill would likely need to increase the statutory caps for all licensing fees. Through Assembly Bill 1535, the RVT application and initial and renewal registration fees decreased by 36% from $350 down to $225. To compensate for the lost revenue, the board increased the initial veterinary premises registration fees from $400 to $500 and premises renewal fees to $525. The board also increased the VACSP application initial and renewal permit fees from $50 to $100. The board initially intended to create a tiered fee structure related to the size of the veterinary premises, with the intent to have larger premises pay larger fees and keep the fees lower for veterinarians and RVTs. However, at that time, the board didn't have data to make accurate fund condition projections. The board decided to start collecting data related to veterinary premises employees, expecting enough data by the following sunset review to create the tiered structure. In addition, due to various internal cost-saving measures, the board's fund condition projections improved, and it became evident that the board could sustain itself through 2026 without increasing its statutory caps. The board informed licensees and stakeholders that a statutory cap increase would be necessary during the 2026 sunset review. So an update, in its 2025 sunset review report, the board noted fund projections dropping below its 3-month statutory minimum in fiscal years 29 and 30. And the board would need to seek statutory cap increases through its sunset bill. In March 2025, Dr. Sullivan and I met with board staff numerous times and reviewed the following: veterinary premises employee data collected over the last 4 years, various other states' veterinary premises fee structures, current fund projections over the next 10 years, various potential fee models and their impact on the board's fund that were prepared by the DCA Budget Office, fee structure goals, which included create a veterinary premises tiered fee structure, recommend incremental fee increases for all license types with the largest impact focusing on the premises, maintain a healthy fund condition, which DCA recommends 12 to 15 months in reserve, prevent the need to seek a statutory increase each sunset cycle, and delay the need for a fee increase through regulation as long as possible. Based on the above, we created a proposed fee structure for MDC and board consideration in Attachment 1. This proposed fee structure includes 4 incremental increases, with the first fee increase not occurring until fiscal year 28-29. The last increase is projected to occur in fiscal year 34-35 and carry the board through fiscal year 35-36. The last increase is the recommended statutory cap to request through the board's current sunset bill. As far as the premises tiered structure is concerned, while the board collected data on multiple employee types at registered veterinary premises, the proposed tier structure is based on the number of full-time equivalent veterinarians who work at each premises. The 3 tiers are broken up as follows: a small premises, which is 1 to 3 veterinarians, a medium premises, which is 4 to 8 veterinarians, and a large premises, which is 9+ veterinarians. Based on the data, roughly 80% of the registered veterinary premises would be categorized as small, 16% categorized as medium, and 4% categorized as large. The medium and large registered veterinary premises would see the most significant impact from the proposed structure. In addition, some states charge an additional $25 for each mobile unit tied to a registered veterinary premises. While these mobile units are not required to obtain separate registrations under California law, board inspectors still inspect each mobile unit identified during an inspection. Due to the increased workload associated with inspecting mobile units, the proposal includes a $25 fee for each mobile unit tied to a fixed veterinary premises. There is a disproportionate impact on the VACSPs. Notably, the proposed fee structure includes significant increases to VACSP-related fees to more closely align with the RVT fees. While the VACSP application process is faster than the RVT process, the enforcement workload tied to the VACSP is more than the workload tied to RVTs. Many VACSP applicants have an existing criminal history, and once they receive their permits, they tend to have more subsequent arrests than their RVT counterparts. In addition, veterinary premises owners presumably cover the costs of the VACSP more often than they do for the RVT. The fund condition, the proposals do not align with the recommendation to have roughly 12 to 15 months in reserves. As shown in attachment 2, the analysis of the board's fund condition, the board's reserves are estimated to drop to 4.4 months and only reach 5.5 months by fiscal year 2035-36. However, board staff estimates the actual reserves will end up higher than projected for the following reasons. Historical reversion, the board's fund condition presumes the board will expend its full budget allocation each year. Over the last several years, the board has reverted small portions back to its fund each year. Point-in-time projections. The board's fund condition is a point-in-time projection based on the assumption that workload and revenue projections are realized in the current year and ongoing. This can change for various reasons, including subsequent statewide expenditure changes, unanticipated enforcement activities, lower than expected revenue, etc. The further out the projections are, the less reliable they become. As an example of how the projections can vary, in July 2022, it was estimated that the board's fund condition would have 8.2 months in reserve by the end of fiscal year 23-24. However, the board's actuals reflected 14.3 months in reserve for that fiscal year. Pending legislative proposal, the board is currently seeking a legislative amendment that would authorize the board to enter into stipulated settlements without transmitting the case to the Office of the Attorney General to prepare, file, and serve as an accusation or statement of issues. In the past 4 years, 89% of the board's cases were settled without going to hearing. During those 4 years, the board spent an average of over $800,000 per year on OAG and Office of Administrative Hearings costs. This means that if the legislative proposal is successful, the board could potentially save over $712,000 on average per year. The legislative proposal regarding fees, in reliance on the proposed fee structure in attachment 1, the attached legislative proposal, which is attachment 3, would resolve the looming structural imbalance described below. This proposal would raise statutory fees as follows. Would amend BPC section 4905, new subdivision B1 and 5. The veterinarian and university veterinarian license application fees currently in this section, in subdivisions A and E, would be renumbered as subdivision B1 and 5 and changed from a set fee of $350 to a statutory cap of $540 to allow the board to increase the application fees in regulation over time. Amend BPC section 4905, new subdivision B2. The California Veterinary Medicine Practice Act, course fee currently in section 4905 subdivision B would be renumbered as subdivision B2. Unnecessary text would be stricken and the statutory cap of $100 would be increased to $155. Amend section 4905, new subdivision B3 and 6. The initial veterinarian and initial university veterinarian license fees currently in section 4905, subdivisions C and F would be renumbered as subdivision B3 and 6, and the statutory cap of $500 would be increased to $765. Amend section 4905, new subdivision B4 and 7. The biennial veterinarian and university license renewal fees currently in section 4905, subdivisions D and G would be renumbered as subdivision B4 and 7 and changed from a set fee of $500 to a statutory cap of $765 to allow the board to increase the renewal fees in regulation over time. The legislative proposal would create new definitions of small, medium, and large veterinary premises for purposes of new tiered fee structures and insert new veterinary premises fees as follows. So it would amend section 4905, new subdivision B 8 and 9. The initial and renewal veterinary premises registration fees currently set at $500 and $525 respectively in section 4905, subdivisions L and M would be renumbered as subdivision B8 and 9 and amended to provide for an initial small veterinary premises registration fee of $840 and renewal fee of $910. It would add new subdivision B10 and 11. This would be to establish initial and renewal medium veterinary premises registration fees in the amounts of $1,120 and $1,190 respectively. New subdivision B12 and 13 would establish initial and renewal large veterinary premises registration fees in the amount of $1,675 and $1,745 respectively. The legislative proposal would amend the RVT and VACSP fees as follows. It would amend 4905 new subdivision B14, 15, and 16. So the RVT application, initial registration, and renewal fees currently in section 4905 subdivisions N, O, and P would be renumbered as subdivision B 14, 15, and 16, and changed from a set fee of $225 to a statutory cap of $350 to allow the board to increase these fees in regulation over time. It would also amend section 4905, new subdivision B 17, 18, and 19. The VACSP application, initial permit, and renewal fees would be renumbered as subdivision B 17, 18, and 19 from QRNS, and changed from a set fee of $100 to a statutory cap of $320 to allow the board to increase these fees in regulation over time. There's also some other cleanup language related to fees. It includes the following staff recommended amendments. Repeal section 4905 subdivision H and amend subdivision T, the delinquency fee. This subdivision sets the delinquency fee for veterinarians, including university veterinarians, RVTs, and registered veterinary premises at $50. However, this fee does not align with BPC section 163.5, which states the pertinent part following the delinquency penalty or late fee for any license within the Department of Consumer Affairs shall be 50% of the renewal fee for such license in effect on the date of the renewal of the license, but not less than $25 nor more than $150. Section 4905 subdivision T more closely aligns with section 163.5, but currently only applies to VACSPs. As such, this subdivision would be renumbered as subdivision B20 and amended to apply to all license, registration, and permit delinquency fees. It would repeal section 4905 subdivision I, the duplicate license fee. Subdivision I sets a $25 fee for issuance of a duplicate license, registration, or permit. However, a licensee, registrant, or permit holder can now print these documents at any time through their Breeze account. Since no workload is associated with this task, board staff recommends repealing this section. It would also repeal 4905 subdivision J, duplication or other services. This subdivision has not been used in over a decade. As such, it is recommended that this section be repealed. Notably, section 161 authorizes the board to sell copies of any part of its respective public records or compilations, extracts, or summaries of information contained in public records at a charge sufficient to pay the actual cost thereof. The DCA director has determined that the fees for the sale of public records shall be 10 cents per page plus the actual cost of staff time for retrieving and duplicating the documents. Staff time is computed according to guidelines set by the Department of General Services State Administrative Manual at section 8740. The fees are charged to recover the DCA's and board's costs in producing the documents. In addition, Government Code section 7922.530 subdivision A authorizes the board to charge fees covering direct costs of duplication of public records. Civil Code section 1798.33 authorizes the board to charge fees not to exceed 10 cents per page for copies of records containing personal information disclosable pursuant to the Information Practices Act of 1977. They also recommend to repeal section 4905 subdivision K, failing to report change of mailing address. So prior to 2019, board staff would automatically add a $25 fee to every licensee, registrant, and permit holder whenever a piece of mail was returned to the board citing this subdivision. However, this resulted in a significant number of phone calls from confused and upset individuals trying to renew their licenses and not understanding where the additional fee came from. Board staff often ultimately removed the fee to appease the callers, adding the $25 fee cost the board more in staff time than the revenue it generated. As such, the board's executive officer directed staff to stop adding the fee for return mail and proposes to repeal this fee for failure to report a change of mailing address. It is important to note that removing the fee does not remove the requirement for license applicants and licensees to report changes in mailing or employment address. It would repeal section 4905 subdivision U, the application for board approval to offer RVT training. The board is already seeking a legislative proposal to repeal BPC sections related to the board approving schools or institutions offering a curriculum for training RVTs. As such, this subdivision should be repealed. And then it would also amend BPC 4905 new subdivision V, months in reserve. The first sentence of this subdivision refers to a 1991 general fund loan being redeposited into the board's fund and reducing fees accordingly. It is currently unknown when the 1991 general fund loan was repaid, but there are currently no outstanding general fund loans. Thus, this sentence should be struck. The second sentence requires no less than 3 months in reserve. This provides time for the board to increase fees prior to the board going insolvent and should remain as renumbered subdivision B21 with a few minor tweaks. The third sentence sets a statutory cap of 10 months in reserve. This was recently flagged as an issue by the Joint Sunset Review Committees and raised as a logistical issue during the board's March 2025 sunset hearing. This sentence also conflicts with BPC Section 128.5 Subdivision B, which sets the board's statutory cap of 24 months in reserve. It is recommended the third sentence in the subdivision be struck, reverting to the cap in BPC Section 128.5 Subdivision B. The proposed fee structure was presented at stakeholder meetings to representatives from CVMA and CARFTA in March. Overall, the proposal was well received with no objections. Some feedback from association representatives and other veterinarians included increasing the fees earlier and increasing the statutory cap on veterinarian fees to allow for decreasing the statutory cap for RVT fees. The rationale provided was that veterinarians' income has significantly increased over the past several years, while RVT's income has remained stagnant. As such, in attachments 4 through 6, you will see an additional fee structure, fund condition analysis, and a legislative proposal was created to show greater impacts to veterinarians and lesser impacts to RVTs. Specifically, the option 2 legislative proposal would increase the initial and renewal veterinarian and initial and renewal university veterinarian license fees to $800 instead of the $765 as proposed in option 1. It would decrease the RVT application, initial registration, and renewal fees to $300 instead of the $350 as proposed in option 1. And it would decrease the VACSP application, initial permit, and renewal fees to $300 instead of the $320 proposed in option 1. And I want to thank all of the staff that worked really hard on this, not only initially, but once we started changing things, getting those numbers generated so quickly. It was a lot of reading.
Now that's how the Department of Government Efficiency should work. That was good.
Questions? I appreciate it because it started when I was on the NBC, so I know how far back this goes. So I appreciate all of the work. So thank you, guys. I'll make a motion because I actually, so I will put on my glasses so I can read it. Recommend to the, well, I mean, do we want to, I personally have a suggestion to go with the second option, but that's mine. But okay, so I'm going to recommend to the board submission to the California State Legislature, the legislative proposal option 2 to amend BPC section 4905 regarding the board's fee structure.
I second that.
Which one's going to second? Oh, Dr. Water. All right.
Okay, any further discussion from the committee?
I don't know if veterinary income has increased substantially, but I'll let that pass.
More so than
In relation to RVTs. Okay, we will open it up to public comment from the room.
Hi, Grant Miller, CVMA. We appreciate the board approaching us about this and your thoughtful work, very dedicated and detailed work and projecting numbers into the future. We feel that one of the best options for the profession stability and the board is to be proactive about this and be moving, looking out ahead for a long period of time to try to determine what the needs will be. And so we're in support of that. A small comment relating to the duplicate licenses. While we agree that a $25 fee should not be assessed, we are not aware that you can go on Breeze and reprint your licenses on Breeze. So if there's some way to do that, it would be interesting to find out. Do any of the other licensees on the board, have you ever gone on to Breeze and tried to print your license? I don't think you can. So if there's some way that we're missing, it might be helpful to, if we're no longer going to have that $25 fee to have the board do it, however it's supposed to be done, it would be helpful to get that education out, which we might be able to assist with. But like I tried last night, I can't find how to print my license from my Breeze account. Thank you.
I have a comment. Just to plan for the variables that can happen that questions you're going to be asked. So you have a 4-veterinarian hospital and you're filling out your renewal right now. The 2 of your veterinarians are on maternity leave. And they're going to be on maternity leave for 6 months.
They're still employees, correct?
Yes, so there's,
So you just fill it out with 4, even though only 2 are working.
yeah, so right now it would be the full-time equivalent veterinarian. So that's,
Maternity leave counts as 4, okay.
Yeah.
So right now I'm filling out my license, filling out my renewal fee for my premises, and I have 8 veterinarians. But I've already hired 3. They're going to start in the summer.
yeah, so I think that you're going to have a whole bunch of different scenarios.
They're going to have a bunch.
And
yeah.
the goal from the board was to come up with a fee structure that would have that tiered approach. And I think that if you have other ideas, I think that's
No,
to
I'm just
address
saying, I'm
it.
just
But
warning
it
you.
would be, yeah,
Yeah.
so it would be at the time of renewal, how many full-time equivalent veterinarians they have at that premises. So if that changes from between renewal cycles, they wouldn't pay that new fee until they renew at that time.
Okay. I don't think we have any further public comment from the room. Moderator, can we please open it up to public comment online?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If any member of the public would like to comment, please raise your hand. We'll give you a moment. All right, we have Nancy Ehrlich raising her hand. Nancy, you should be able to unmute. There you go.
I'm just a little confused because the notes that I have from my conversation with Jessica don't meet the same numbers as is posted here. She originally told us that, oh, I see. Never mind. I have an A and B. Never mind. I've answered my own question.
All right, this is a moderator. I see no further requests for comment. Madam Chair, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. Okay, further discussion?
I just had another comment. There's a paragraph here that says many VACSP applicants have existing criminal history, and once they receive their permits, they tend to have more subsequent arrests than their RBT counterparts. Their number of arrests don't go up once they get their permit. They just have more compared to RBTs. Okay. So by giving them access to drugs, doesn't get them arrested more.
Correct.
Okay.
We weren't making that correlation.
Okay. Just making sure.
If there's no further discussion, I think we'll call for a vote.
Ms. Esri?
Yes.
Ms. Pulaski?
Yes.
Dr. Getkin?
Yes.
Dr. Grant?
Yes.
Dr. Nunez?
Yes.
Ms. Sheffield?
Yes.
Dr. Waterhouse?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Agenda item 7, update, discussion, and potential action on recommendations from the Complaint Audit Subcommittee. Dr. Goodkin and Dr. Waterhouse.
Thank you. And for the first part of this memo, I'm just going to refer you to attachment, the attachment that's on page 3, just to go over some data. As indicated in attachment 1 at the end of this memo, from November 24 through January 25, consultants reviewed 101 cases, of which 64 were closed as no violation, 9 were closed with an educational letter, 5 were closed due to insufficient evidence, and 22 cases were determined to need a full expert review. Since the prior consultant roundtable, the number of cases pending consultant review increased from the previous quarter, with 920 cases pending consultant review. In the same time period, subject matter experts reviewed 126 cases, of which 30 were closed as no violation, 26 were closed with an educational letter, 21 were cited or prepped for citation against 13 respondents, and 52 were transmitted to the Attorney General's Office for disciplinary action against 7 respondents. There are 671 cases waiting for a written expert review at this time. As far as the subcommittee case report reviews go, Dr. Waterhouse and I reviewed 6 finalized cases involving 2 respondents to identify opportunities, appraise, and to relate to the experts who opined on it, opportunities to learn more. The subcommittee identified many topics to discuss with the 2 experts in detail, including but not limited to identifying all standard of care departures, using proper terminology in your report, refraining from using legal terms such as negligence in your analysis, knowing who will be reading the report, keeping the analysis brief when no departure from standard of care is found, reminder of the relationship between the veterinarian client-patient relationship and the physical examination, and using precise wording in reports. We will continue to review cases quarterly, providing that there are finalized cases from active experts for the subcommittee to review. And then on March 7th, our subcommittee met to discuss the following. We, as far as strategic plan objective 3.3, was aimed at tracking the types of complaints submitted to the board. As mentioned during the prior meeting, telehealth has now been added as a type of visit on the online complaint form. Type of animal will also be a drop-down question for consumers to answer when submitting a complaint. The options will be small animal, equine, livestock, or other. This change has been requested and is now in the hands of the Breeze staff. Strategic Plan Objective 4.6, as the language of BPC Section 4875.1 stands now, priorities are categorized involving veterinarians and registered veterinary technicians who represent the greatest threat to the public. Therefore, veterinary medicine practiced by unlicensed individuals does not fall under any of the listed categories of priorities. The subcommittee believes the unlicensed practice of veterinary medicine is one of the greatest threats to the public and should be included in BPC Section 4875.1. Replacing the statutory language which identifies veterinarians and registered veterinary technicians with the word individuals will allow the board to take action against both licensed and unlicensed practitioners of veterinary medicine. As such, the subcommittee proposes the following amendments to BPC Section 4875.1. The additions are in underlined text and the deletions in strike-through text. I guess I can just read that. We're proposing 4875.1A, in order to ensure that its resources are maximized for the protection of the public, the board shall prioritize its investigative and prosecutorial resources to ensure that individuals representing the greatest threat of harm are identified and disciplined expeditiously. Cases involving any of the following allegations shall be handled on a priority basis as follows, with the highest priority being given to cases in paragraph 1. And then subsection 1, we'd like it to change wording as well. Negligence or incompetence that involves death or serious bodily injury to an animal patient such that the individual represents a danger to the public.
And members too, I believe when this was brought up at the last MDC meeting, there was some confusion that the board had already done this, approved this amendment. They had approved the amendment in A1, but it wasn't in the overall paragraph of the starting paragraph of A. And so that's what we're recommending to include. But A1 had been approved by the board already.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to recommend to the board submission to the California State Legislature, the legislative proposal to amend BPC Section 4875.1 regarding prioritization of cases.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion from the committee? We will open it up to the room for public comment.
Hello, Dan Baxter from the CVMA. It's good to be in front of you. I don't have a comment on the specific legislation proposed. I do have a quick comment, 90 seconds, on one item on page 1 of the report that makes reference to the February 26 consultant roundtable and the indication that there was a discussion of spectrum of care and how it affects opining on standard of care. As just a step backward, every year the CVMA puts forth a strategic plan document. We call it our action plan. And the 2025-2026 action plan has a couple of items related to spectrum of care, contextualized care, incremental care, call it what you will. One of those is to message to our own members more and better on that subject, to educate them about things like the importance of documenting declined care, things like that. Another item is actually to engage with the Veterinary Medical Board on the issue of contextualized care. And so I thought I would take this moment to just do that for a second. And just to emphasize that from our point of view, any type of roundtable that takes place along these lines, we would encourage spectrum of care, contextualized care, et cetera, to be a point that is raised during those meetings, and that's kept top of mind. And I would offer the CVMA as a resource for purposes of that engagement and that discussion. We would love to collaborate with the VMB on sort of refining what the concepts are, how they do impact standard of care and expert opinions. And I'll leave it at that, but we would certainly love to interface with the VMB on that subject going forward. So thank you.
Okay, seeing no more public comment in the room, moderator, can we please open it up for public comment online?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If any member of the public would like to comment on agenda item 7, please raise your hand. We'll give you a moment. All right, I am seeing no raised hands. Madam Chair, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. Okay, any further discussion? Dr. Gudkin?
Just to go off of Mr. Baxter's comment there, yeah, I do like we are keeping spectrum of care in mind. One of the concerns I'd had too is what our newer veterinarians are being taught about spectrum of care, because a lot of us consultants have been out of school for decades as well. So this is a topic that I do think we need to get more input on from all generations and all avenues that we can.
And so part of that too is the outreach subcommittee has been tasked with writing more outreach materials regarding the spectrum of care. And they reported at their last meeting that they met with, I believe it was with Western and UC Davis regarding spectrum of care and what is being taught in there. And and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but the overall consensus was it is being taught. It's just not specifically maybe called out in the course outline, and they're looking at ways to bring it more as a forefront. Maybe the terminology itself has changed, but it's been in there essentially as they're always teaching the varying options of care, but they're also looking at ways to even emphasize it more. And so that is something that this committee through the outreach committee is looking at to bring to light as well.
Thank you. Okay. If there's no further discussion, I think we'll call for a vote.
Ms. Essery,
Yes.
Ms. Pulowski,
Yes.
Dr. Getkin,
Yes.
Dr. Grant,
Yes.
Dr. Nunez,
Yes.
Ms. Chappelle,
Yes.
Dr. Waterhouse.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, agenda item 8, update discussion and potential action on recommendations from the inspections subcommittee. That is Dr. Goodkin and Ms. Pulowski.
Okay. So the mobile inspection application launched in November 2024. And since its launch, it's already significantly streamlined the inspection process for inspectors, premises managing licensees, premises staff, and the California Veterinary Medical Board. So the subcommittee was tasked in the boards, so this is strategic plan objective 3.7, and we're updating the hospital standards self-evaluation checklist. Hopefully, everyone here knows what that looks like, and we're going to help licensees remain in compliance with regulations. So this checklist was first published in August 2014 as an educational tool for small animal veterinary premises staff to ensure they were in compliance with the minimum standards and of the Practice Act. And it includes 42 items inspected by the board during an inspection, and it was last updated in 2017. So our work is cut out for us. So since the January meeting, the subcommittee has met several times to review and revise the checklist. The overall structure is being revised to align the objectives with current law and providing hyperlinks to the applicable code sections. So we're adding those to each objective. So it'll be an online tool and somebody can click on the actual law and the hyperlink and it'll take them to the law in the Practice Act. Objectives that are not supported by current law are being removed. In addition, third-party resources such as inspection information from the California Department of Public Health Radiologic Health Branch are being linked throughout the document because I was just inspected by them and they provided me with all kinds of information. Compliance examples are also being revised to address frequent areas of non-compliance. Compliance examples are being removed whenever the objectives are self-explanatory. So throughout this review, the subcommittee has identified multiple statutes and regulations that should be created, amended, or repealed. And this includes adding clarity to existing laws, closing potential loopholes in federal regulations, and removing redundant or otherwise unnecessary regulations. So we're going to continue our review of the checklist, update outdated language, and ensure consistency with the Practice Act. A draft of the checklist will likely be ready for MDC feedback during the July 2025 meeting. So we'll also draft potential legislative and regulatory proposals for MDC and board consideration at future meetings.
Thank you. Any questions or discussions from the committee? Okay, we will open it up to public comment from the room. And seeing none, moderator, would you please open it up for public comment online?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If any member of the public would like to make a comment, please raise your hand. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment. Madam Chair, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. Okay, agenda item 9, update and discussion from the outreach subcommittee. That's Ms. Bowler and Dr. Waterhouse.
I thought Kathy Buller was going to do this, so I'm going to speak very off the cuff. The outreach committee is working primarily kind of in 2 areas. One on the spectrum of care, as Jessica just talked about. We have talked to UC Davis. We talked to a professor there on how they approach the spectrum of care. And just last week, Jessica sent me an article that's being prepared by the AAVSB on the spectrum of care. And I read that and gave my comments. I suggested changes for that. Both of them, both UC Davis and the AAVSB, both remarked about how this is kind of old is new. Spectrum of care is nothing new. It's the way I've practiced for the last 44 years. And so meaning that you give clients all their options and you talk about each option and you decide the best course for them. The part that maybe we need to emphasize more than was done in the past is how important medical records are. You have to document all this, the things they accepted, the things they declined. The second area that the outreach committee has worked on is unlicensed activity. And we specifically talked to a veterinarian who specializes in repro. He's a theriogenologist, and some of the things that he sees at dog shows and such. And maybe we should turn that over to Dr. Nunez and Dr. Grant. But anyway, that's the areas that we've been working on.
And just to add to that, the individual that the subcommittee has been working with, the veterinarian who specializes in the small animal reproductive vet area, he has provided some educational materials for the subcommittee to review. These education materials were first geared at the management of dog shows, and we're looking at having them tailored to consumers as well. Kathy Bowler and I went and attended 2 dog shows that are locally, and to look at how dog shows are set up and what type of education should be provided to consumers and licensees at these dog shows and where that could potentially be shown. We are working on scheduling a meeting with management of dog shows to share concerns similar to what the Unlicensed Practice Subcommittee did with the horse shows and the polo clubs, looking at doing the same thing with dog shows as well. One thing that we're kind of shifting the thought process on regarding consumer education for dog shows, the first iteration that this individual had helped create was geared toward consumers who are not well educated in what reproductive services are. And so there's a lot of definitions in there. But in speaking with Kathy, who is very involved in the dog show world, it was very evident that these consumers are more educated, and a lot of them know all of the services, what they are. And so we're looking at tailoring it to more educated consumer base that attend these dog shows, not just the everyday family that's going to a dog show. It's typically people who are very educated in this realm. And so we're looking at creating those materials for the more educated consumer and also the management at the dog shows. And then we'll provide updates as we go along.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or discussion from the committee? If not, we will open it up to public comment in the room. And seeing none, moderator, would you please open it up for public comment online?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If any member of the public would like to comment on agenda item 9, please raise your hand. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment. Madam Chair, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. Agenda item 10 is the update and discussion from the California Department of Food and Agriculture Subcommittee, which is myself and Dr. Waterhouse.
Just last Friday, wasn't it? We met with CDFA and the blood bank regulations have been approved. That was their big news, and that was about the only news.
Oh, they did say they really appreciated the board's help in getting that information out to consumers. Yep. I know that was one thing they really stressed, was that was a huge help to them. Briefly, we inquired about the highly pathogenic avian influenza. It's still overwhelming multiple departments there, so they didn't have much of an update because they weren't able to attend. But they did note that the strategy ranges based on what area of the state dairies are in, as that pertains to the dairies.
But is that almost every dairy in California is affected?
Wow.
With the exception of some of the coastal and northern regions.
No raw milk.
There's 2 cats in LA County got sick. Cats.
Any questions or comments from the committee? Okay, we will open it up to the room for public comment. And seeing none, moderator, would you please open it up for public comment online?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If any member of the public would like to comment on agenda number 10, please raise your hand. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment. Madam Chair, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. Agenda item 11, future agenda items and meeting dates.
All right, so the 2025 meeting dates are posted, but they're July 15th and October 14th of 2025. And then as reported at the last meeting, the 2026 dates are January 20th, April 14th, July 14th, and October 13th. For future agenda items we have coming to this subcommittee or to the MDC is from the inspection subcommittee with hopefully the checklist proposal, the updates to them, and potentially some legislative and regulatory proposals as well. And then anything else?
Can you do the 2026 dates again?
Sure. January 20th, April 14th, July 14th, October 13th. And that's all.
Okay, any comments from the committee? Okay, we will open it up to the room for public comment. And seeing none, moderator, would you please open it up online for public comment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If any member of the public would like to comment on agenda item 11, please raise your hand. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment. Madam Chair, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. This is Dr. Grant's last MDC meeting. So before we adjourn, I would just like to say thank you for your service and the time that you've dedicated to helping with all of this. And
Thank you very much. It's been an honor to be involved, and I've been in veterinary medicine now for 58 years. Been just impressed with everybody, the staff and the members, and especially this committee who volunteer their time and transportation to even get up and go through all these things. I think it speaks well for our form of government, at least in the state of California, that we can get things done like that. I think everybody doesn't have an axe to grind that I've met on this committee. We're just trying to do the very best by everybody. Thank you very much.